very much monolithic approach. Opposite to this, I identify a very strong secularist, equally explicitist position that really grew within the Muslim countries originally. After, of course, the Western colonization left the Muslim land, basically left to be remodeled within the European nation-states of imagination. Hence, we have got very strict secularistic sort of attitudes, which really they want to just remodel the European secularism within Islamic basically culture and polity, which I think it's basically an impossibility and it's fundamentally conflicts with the Islamic fundamental value principles. Now, I say this because really, in order to develop a sensible perspective, Islamically sensible perspective, we have to draw upon, obviously, the core Islamic values. And here, we have to consider the distinct features of the Muslim faith. What does it mean to be faithful, originally? And how this faithfulness really could actually be actualized and practiced within diverse cultural sort of settings. So, the paper briefly sort of tries to really recapture the dynamic concepts within the Quran itself, the kind of the center of Islamic epistemology, if you like it, which is usually referred to as the core sources, the Quran and the prophetic model, which have practiced it. Now, I do feel that obviously there are different views of making sense of these core sources, but the approach I am advocating is trying to really capture the dynamism within these sources. And basically, I introduced the Islamic concept of faith, which is Iman, and Islam. They are really two, if you like, existential qualities, value positions, if you like, the ways of being in the world, which you can really capture as being faithful. Now, that faithfulness obviously is essentially individual, and the Quran is talking all about how do you nurture this faithfulness. And at its center is really to recognize that you've been created, and therefore you have to really express your thankfulness to the Creator. The kind of hypothesis is that the Creator created the creation, obviously, including human beings, and human beings should really reflect some sort of gratitude towards his creation. So, the word, of course, the opposite of this ingratitude is takfir or kufr. Literally really means being ingrateful, being unthankful. Now, we see Quran is full of these statements, that the whole point of the Quran is trying to aid human reason to bring about this thankful human attitude, if you like it. But that kind of thankfulness, which is the original really the meaning of being faithful, it could be actualized in diverse historical contexts, including our today's highly secularized multicultural context. What are these values that really define this is the way in which we always uphold justice, we oppose injustice, we try to maintain equality, we try to really avoid discrimination, we try to avoid to oppress each other, and we have to project our adoration and worship only to one God. So, within this framework, if you like it, the category of being faithful is essentially defined with these existential qualities. But this is also linked with, obviously, the social aspects. That is where really the kind of these core values practiced within the social context comes into, which is at the heart of the debate today, the concept of Sharia. Now, traditional Muslim theologians have defined this religiosity, this first part, this act of awareness of grasping unity and oneness of God, and then expressing thankfulness towards God and human beings, as to describe the ibadah and the tawheed, the worship and the oneness of God, which is the fundamental principle. But attached to this is the social interaction part, which is usually called mu'amalat. Well, this social interaction is obviously where you have to find how these core values impact in everyday life. So you have horizontal and vertical real lines. Now, within traditional Muslim self-understanding, religiosity really is just a socially embodied sort of process. It cannot be separated. Therefore, this is fundamental principle of this religiosity. No matter where you practice it, minority or majority, you've got to have some sort of social presence as well, what I call faithful polity. Now, again, there's no, of course, time to go into debate, but the fact is, when you apply these values in a social context, you have the limitations of history, of course. Now, we have to find out ways of realizing that Islam is capable of recognizing these limitations. And my contention is the Quran sets the whole concept of Sharia really to be actually a time-bound, historical sort of reality. Therefore, the Quran talks about different Sharias, indeed ways that has been put into practice by different prophets. So I do believe that Sharia is actually does not refer to a set of positive laws, but it refers to really ways in which you can discern these core values within the divine will that could be practiced in diverse historical contexts. Therefore, Sharia does not refer to a set of law really. Now, I know that time is pressing. And of course, the key other point is the way in which Muslim legal thinking developed concepts like maslahah, interest, human interest, and preserving public good. And regardless of really their own different historical context, they all emphasize that actually, if you study the whole duties and laws within Islam, what you come up with is really two distinct set of conclusions. One is worship heart, which obviously you can always discern some wisdoms behind 5 times prayer, why not 6 times. But ultimately, these worship-related concepts are explicitly really to God's command. They are not really there to be too much justified. However, when it comes to the social aspects, the legal thinking has advanced really a very strong sort of view that all the social interactions, rules and regulations and their philosophies must be publicly justified and they are serving human dignity and public good. And I choose deliberately two important persons to illustrate this, which are usually depicted as kind of advancing radical sort of traditionalist causes today. One is Ibn Taymiyyah, who is supposed to be the father of modern Salafi thought, which is practiced in Saudi Arabia. And the other one is his actual pupil and contemporary Tufi, who indeed, by simply reflecting on one prophetic report, that it says there is no giving harm, nor being subject to harm. He advances a whole theory that actually public good and human dignity must supersede the text as far as it's concerned with social interaction. And this is a very radical hermeneutics, what I call it. And today, really, as Muslims, be in a majority or a minority context, we need to exercise this radical hermeneutics within the social space. And therefore, I see a lot of hope and in this positive really implications. If you do actually exercise these concepts, Islamic legal thinking and theological thinking has got plenty of, if you like, the resources that it can actually utilize to fully, in a sense, provide an Islamically meaningful justification for Muslims to participate fully in secular democratic polities. And obviously, having said that, the whole secular democratic part obviously needs also to rethink its own position. And my final thought would be really the whole heart of the whole exercise, my own experiences in Britain and in the paper. I do believe that today, the reality of multicultural settings or diverse cultural values, be it religious or non-religious, if you want genuinely to develop a policy that these values do not just simply exist paralleled, which indeed happened in Islamic history with its own principle of plurality. Ottoman Empire did manage to bring together, or Muslim in Spain did manage to bring together diversity of faiths, but really there was also an encouragement that these people could find a common purpose within this Muslim polity, while preserving their own dignity within the system. Secular democracy must, in my view, provide this space that while it creates a space for people to meaningfully get into dialogue, but it also encourages them to have a common purpose. That cannot be achieved, in my view, unless all of the diverse worldviews, part of this polity, began first in a self-critical mode, re-examining themselves, to see limitations of their own worldviews. If you can't see the limitation of your worldviews, you will never feel the need to connect to the other. This is at the heart of my real argument, that we have to find out ways of seeing the limitation of our worldviews in the hope of reaching to each other. And I do believe that secular democracy described within these parameters could actually offer a wider context within which these new ways of being Muslims, if you like, faithful Muslims, could actually speak out to us and create a kind of ways of really meaningfully getting in dialogue with other world values. But if each of these worldviews simply stick to each other like separate sort of enclaves, atheistic values, so-called humanistic values, diverse religious values, we are not talking about a genuine dialogue. We're just talking about really containing difference. And that will be my, in a sense, hope and prayers that really Islam is full of these resources, and we have to convey this to our young generations, to our new religious leadership, to actually practice this. And in this sense, I do see lots of hope that we could have a genuinely just, balanced, and accommodating secular and equality. Thank you. I'm sorry for that.
No, it's okay. Thank you very much. Obviously, there's a lot to take in there, and I hope people have had a chance to also go through the paper. But now I'd like to ask Nick Prince of Theos to respond.